Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Friday, which if you look at the history of the fillet of fish, is the whole reason for the fillet of fish.
Oh,
We're not going to get into that right now. Friday and all of today's guests, including Thomas Drance, are brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Looking for a midweek escape close to home? BC residents save 15% on weekday stays at the Bayside in Parksville. Relax by the ocean, golf, enjoy great dining, and unwind with island hospitality. Book now at Bayside.ResortParksville.com. Canucks have 3 new members of Adam Foote's coaching staff, and here to talk about that and more from The Athletic, Thomas Drance. How are you, sir?
Gentlemen, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Kevin Dean, Brett McLean, Scott Young, your opinion of Adam Foote's coaching staff. The new guys, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. Kevin Dean, highly regarded, highly recruited, has a lot of experience working with and blooding young defensemen at the NHL level. With the way that this Canucks blue line group is. Why are you guys smirking at me, by the way?
Not smirking.
Look at those guys. They're both like smiling at me.
no, we're happy that you're here.
Whenever
thank you.
you're on, we're
I'm happy to be
constantly
here.
smiling when you're on.
I didn't say
I
boo.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know, you guys just both look like such rays of sunshine. I was like, what's going on? Anyway, Kevin Dean, experienced and willing to use young defensemen, played a big role in Charlie McAvoy and Brandon Carlo and like 5 different young defenders in Chicago sort of finding their feet at the NHL level, given, the Mancini, Valander, and Elias Pettersson of it all in Vancouver. That seems like a sensible fit for the Canucks as they sort of have Adam Foote jump up a chair into the head coaching role. Brett McLean, I don't know that much about him. Obviously, that Iowa Wild team struggled a little bit last year, but 7 years in that organization in a variety of different capacities. And then Scott Young's the interesting one to me, gentlemen. I mean, he's got a couple of years of coaching experience on a bench at the NCAA level, but he's also a very valuable member of this organization in terms of his relationship building in the collegiate hockey scene, in terms of his sense for talent overall. So. Probably a good fit. Clearly a very bright guy, but also something that does perhaps dent your talent evaluation at the amateur level or at least at the collegiate level, with him sort of bumping into the bench and not being available to spend time in various Massachusetts hockey rinks over the course of the season. So, that one's sort of a double-edged sword where you certainly like to see a smart guy get an interesting opportunity to help the organization, but you do sort of wonder if there's drawbacks to it, an internal cost to it overall. Overall, I think this all makes some sense. I will say, 5 years of professional head coaching experience total among the Canucks sort of lead coaches at both the NHL and AHL level, right? You've got 1 season for Malhotra. Kevin Dean has a season of head coaching experience at the ECHL level and 1 at the AHL level. McLean's obviously been an AHL head coach for 2 years. And then Adam Foote obviously has no professional head coaching experience, just not a lot of experience on the staff. And, that's going to be felt, I'm sure. There's going to be seams. There's going to be a learning curve as a result of that. That's not to say that these gentlemen aren't clever enough to figure it out. I'm sure they will, but I'm also sure that they'll look back in a year or two and say, hey, there's some stuff we did in the first few months that we might have done differently knowing what we know now. So that's sort of one thing to watch for here. I'm sure they'll be hardworking. I'm sure they'll try some smart things, but there is a cost to sort of that level of inexperience in a staff. And, it's not a sort of composition that we typically see around the league.
Thomas, the Combine in Buffalo, lots of GMs there, although we hear Patrick Alvin didn't go. He was busy checking out practice facilities instead of talking to other GMs and draft picks in Buffalo. But anyways, a lot of trade talk. We're hearing just, numerous names out there. What about the Canucks? What do they got to do to get that top 6 center forward? Who do they got to give up? This is not going to be easy. The easy thing, Thomas, is to say we need a second-line center. There's a ton of teams looking for that. The hard thing is to execute that.
No question. They're going to have to be aggressive, Rick. They're going to have to be creative. And by the way, don't stop at just one, right? Like they would love to bring in a couple. They would love to bring in a couple. I think there's an openness internally to trying out Philip Hedl on the wing, right? So it's not just one top six center that they're in the market for. They'll be in the market for multiple if they can. That might be the team's preferred path in terms of their overall composition. So it doesn't stop at one. They want to land multiple top six caliber centermen if they can. And that makes sense. You need to have depth. I also think there's an understanding that if you have to go into next season and your top three centermen are Elias Pettersson, Philip Hedl, and Aatu Ratu, that can be workable, right? The organization's very high on Ratu with what they saw. Hedl, obviously, when he's available, I think showed a lot in terms of his speed size combination. So, yeah, I mean, pretty different, though, right? The idea of bringing in multiple top six centermen versus the idea of making do with what you got, right? Like there's a wide range of outcomes here for the Canucks going into the offseason, and we'll sort of see where the chips land. The club's definitely motivated. They want to be aggressive. They have been aggressive to this point. That their expectation internally is that things are going to pick up now that the combine has occurred, now that the Stanley Cup final is sort of at full gallop. Now that within 3 games, for all we know, the Stanley Cup could be awarded. The buyout window would open 48 hours later, and then the silly season will be upon us. So time's getting tight. We're talking about an organization that wants to fundamentally reimagine their forward group over the course of the next 4 weeks. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Patrick Allvin and on Jim Rutherford to execute here, to get it done, to really significantly rethink what this forward group looks like, whether it's in an unrestricted free agency or on the trade market, and most likely, gentlemen, some combination thereof. We'll sort of see where this goes, but I think a lot is on the table, and I think this club is going to be willing to make some tough decisions, even some painful decisions, trade some players they really don't want to trade in order to get what they think they need to get done, and that's multiple top six forwards and presumably another guy with a shot to be in that role as well.
Thomas, at least we have one positive. The Abbotsford Canucks, they win tonight. They're in the Calder Cup final. We haven't seen a Calder Cup final in these neck of the woods in a long time. This is a really good, positive story for the Canucks. Manny's done a great job. They're doing it without a guy you mentioned, Aatu Ratu, their number one center. Hasn't played in weeks. He played last week. He got hurt right away again. There's a lot of good stories down in Abbotsford right now.
There definitely are. The play of Kirill Kudryavtsev, I think, has been standout. Victor Mancini obviously coming on. A lot of this is driven more by veteran players, right? By your Sammy Blais and Phil DiGiuseppe and Max Sasson types, guys who are more likely to be in the mix for fourth line roles at Canucks training camp next year than it has been driven by, Villander, who obviously didn't sign in time to contribute, or Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who's actually struggled after a really strong rookie season in North American professional hockey, struggled in the playoffs to this point. But Artur Shilov's, Sheen is back on Artur Shilov's. Perhaps the Canucks can include him in a bundle of assets to upgrade their forward mix, or have some options to change direction, maybe go a little more affordable in net, depending on how things shake out here. So, yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible run. Obviously, Malhotra's work. And look, it matters. I mean, the Fraser Valley has been a difficult American League market. We understood why when it was the Abbotsford Heat. The Abbotsford Canucks, though, it hasn't always been skiing downhill in 18-degree sunshine weather for that franchise. And you'd hope that sort of a deep run, this kind of emotional connection that clearly you're seeing with the crowds in Abbotsford when they're out there and the level of chatter around this team, you hope that begins to build an emotional connection that can help this franchise put down roots in the Fraser Valley and really become a fixture there for decades to come. It's been fun to watch their success.
Skiing downhill in 18-degree weather, it's a little bit mucky then.
It's too warm? Put in a t-shirt.
Okay.
Baseball cap,
Yeah, I might go 10 or 15
Australians
degrees.
skiing by in nothing but their skivvies. You've been on the mountain like that. Come on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, Thomas, before we let you go, Rick's got the stopwatch out on his phone.
Hold on.
We talked about this in the crossover practice facility for the Canucks. We see them looking at a facility in South Burnaby, Britannia, and East Van. Where should it be?
Yeah, I mean, East Van would be great, right? I think the key is you want to be no more than about 25 minutes away from where players live, not from the game rink, but from where players live. And you want to be relatively close to the airport, too, 25 to 30 minutes away from the airport, which is why that was it Rosemary Brown?
Yep.
That facility sort of is right on the fringes of making sense. A little bit inconvenient for players commuting to it from their homes, but at least a good place to sort of go practice and fly out to. Not too much different from UBC. So that's right on the fringes of being workable, but not really appealing from a player's perspective. I think Britannia out in East Van, a little more central from a player's perspective. That would be a better spot in my view. But yeah, both of those are workable, and obviously they have to get something done. It's critical that this team have a designated facility to use as their home base going forward.
51 seconds.
Excellent.
Which is a record.
Yeah, but it was complex.
Record.
51 seconds, but it was complex.
Yeah, but you've given us 32-minute answers as well, so this is good.
Yeah, wind me up and let me go, boys.
Excellent, Thomas. All downhill or uphill, whatever the positive one is. Thanks, Thomas.
Cheers, boys. Be well.
Appreciate it.